Hi everyone, we're going to try this one more time. So my apologies. Uh, but my name is Michelle Vacanis, and I am having a little bit of some technical difficulties getting Grace
Did
on,
it
but
did it
I'll do it
work?
again and we'll do a little bit of an intro. So first, the organization, we're a nonprofit and we are helping to improve outcomes in pregnancy, childbirth, all the way through infancy. And and then also support those who find themselves in situations where they are grieving a loss. So I myself am an angel mom, and I know that so many of other people are doing this, and so I'm so thrilled to invite and have, hopefully this works, Grace O'Meara, who wrote The First After, which is a guided grief journey for those who have lost a baby and who are going through their first. And so all of the first that you go through. And it really covers everything. So I'm so excited to talk to Grace. So hopefully, um, Grace, can you go ahead and request again? Let's try this one more time.
Yeah. Can you hear me? Can you hear me?
Okay. Grace, are you on? Ah, okay, we got you.
Hooray!
All right. Some technical difficulties with
Mhm.
Instagram. Um, and so, Grace, thank you for bearing with us with technical difficulties, and thank you so much for being here. We really love to have some authors and spotlight authors. And I will tell you, the book is The First After. I feel like I should do this better, and I haven't figured it out yet.
That's great.
But it's a guided grief journey for the first after baby loss, and um, I was blown away by it, and just kept thinking about how much I needed this book
Mm,
6 years ago and still need it, 6 years later in a lot of ways.
mm.
So why don't you introduce yourself? Tell us a little bit about yourself and your parenthood journey.
Sure. So my name is Grace O'Meara, and I'm actually a graphic designer by trade. Um, I'm internationally recognized. I've won a couple of awards, things like that. And I loved working in corporate America. But then when I experienced the stillbirth of my daughter, everything kind of changed. My priorities changed. And I just needed a change of scenery. So we ended up moving to New Zealand, and I worked for the fabulous What a Workshop. They worked on Lord of the Rings. And the creative people there were just, it was so inspiring that it kind of sparked this idea to create this book. I was still kind of going through my grieving process at the time. And I think being in New Zealand offered me the opportunity to really slow down and process those thoughts. And I got connected with a really amazing mental health professional there as well. And I was able to kind of write this, and it kind of became my grief. It felt like it was like pulled out of me, put on the page, and it makes my heart happy to hear you say like you wish you would have had at that time, because that's kind of the perspective that I took when I was doing this. I had a lot of they gave me a wonderful packet when Saoirse was born, but I was desperately looking for like some hope that I could maybe be happy again someday. And that's really the point of this book, is to give a grieving mother like anxiety relief and actionable steps that they can take so that they can process their grief and allow themselves to feel joy again eventually.
Right, right. No, and I think what you're saying is so true. I mean, this is one of the reasons why I always encourage lost parents to join a support group,
Mm-hmm.
right? So you have people around you who get it and who get all of the anxiety, even if it's not, even if it seems unreasonable, but they
Mhm.
get it. And so I think that this is a great way to sort of prepare yourself. One of the things I really loved, I have to say, is that you cover the first chapters that we expect, right? The first time back to work, the first time you have to be around a baby, the first, all of those things. But some of the things you covered are like the first time out at a restaurant or the first time with a movie.
Mhm.
And I think those are really, key important things that um, you're not prepared for in a
Yeah.
lot of cases and sort of just come on you, full blast. The story I always tell, and it was so funny when you said, when I was reading it and I saw restaurants, I was like, oh my God. Um, within probably the first month or so, my husband and I went out to a restaurant. We had like a really good meal and we had fun, right? Like we enjoyed ourselves. We had a really good night. We were laughing. We were doing all this stuff. When we came home, I felt this overwhelming grief and
Mm.
like shame
Mm.
and guilt over
Mm.
having enjoyed
Mm.
myself, right? And like, that's not, that it's understandable, but it's
Yeah.
also like we need to also give ourselves those permissions of being joyful and
Mhm.
being happy
Yeah.
and you know all of that. So I really did appreciate that it's a lot of the firsts and firsts you wouldn't necessarily think of. And then I love that you have something at the end of the book that people can put in their own templates and their own kind of guides to whatever it might be um, that you don't cover, although you cover a lot. um, so yeah, I mean, what do you hope? Well, I guess it's a two question, with who do you hope is the audience? Obviously, the actual grieving mothers. Um, do you feel like other people would really benefit from just sort of reading through this and thinking through it? And then what do you hope they take away from this?
Yeah, so I had the honor of my book being integrated into the bereavement program at the hospital where I gave birth to my daughter. That was just recently. And at the event where they had my book, a lot of the grieving families were able to look through it. And we had a few like grieving grandmothers who said, wow, I had no idea my daughter was going through some of these things, and it helps me understand what she's going through and support her better. And likewise, my goal is to get it into mental health clinics and to get it into the hands of as many palliative care nurses and bereavement specialists so that they understand, not only from my perspective, but I also had so many friends who came forward after my stillbirth. You probably had the
Yep.
same where, oh, I had no idea that they had any sort of loss. And I think that, like, I hope that even the people, the mothers that are like that, that kind of suffering in silence, that they are encouraged to buy this book and work through it, even if it's silently.
Mhm.
Um, so, yeah, mental health professionals, bereavement nurses, and even the families of bereaved are people that I hope
Right.
get something from it.
Yeah.
Hmm.
Yeah, no, I definitely thought that this was something that, friends and family could just look at it and think of like the thought process that goes into not only the first, but the seconds and the, 50th
Hmm.
and all of those things that are triggering, that they really, can understand where you're coming from and the exhaustion that comes with grieving after loss.
Yes.
And so I think that was really great. Um, what was your sort of, I mean, you talked a little bit about it, but what was your emotional journey writing this? How did you find it? Was it healing? Was it triggering? What was it like?
All of the above. So, like it's actually been 9 years now. But in when I'm writing the book, and I'm kind of trying to put myself back in that place so that I can try and draw out some hope from what I felt like was a hopeless moment for me. It brought back a lot of tears and a lot of pain, and my husband as well. He felt a lot of like the reprocessing of that grief, and we were able to work through it together. While I was like, oh, this is what I'm thinking for this page. What do you think? And we brainstormed together, and yeah, there was a lot of kind of reprocessing, but in the process of trying to draw out something hopeful from every milestone there, it also helped me to know that this would hopefully help, like even if it's just one person, that would be enough for me. Um, I I just think about how lost I felt at that time and how so many people wanted to help me, but they didn't know how or what to say. And I'm a doer. Like I want to move forward, and I'm kind of a nerd in that I want like a checklist, like, okay, I did that thing. Now I'm moving forward. And I didn't have anything at that time that made me feel like I was moving forward in my journey. So I felt like really stuck.
Mhm.
And that's why I made this book purposely kind of short, not too long, because I didn't want it to be like, oh, here are the first you're going to encounter. It's a 350 page tome,
Right.
you know? I wanted something that was easy to process. Coming from the graphic design background, and I study the psychology behind design, kind of studying cognitive load and how much we can actually process while our mind is overwhelmed with grief.
Mhm.
That was something that I wanted to really make sure was in the book so that it would be easy to read, easy to work through, and not too overwhelming. And I also wanted something beautiful because I felt like, you know, just because we're grieving parents, we don't like everything we have to have is like so clinical looking,
Mhm.
you know? Like I don't know about the things that you received, but for me, I think having something that's delicately beautiful assists in that as well.
Right.
Mhm.
Yeah. No, I think that's totally true. And yeah, and I think, one of the things you talked about now, and I think that this is so true, is that, you know, often in this world we focus on, the mom, the pregnant person who gave birth or who had the loss. And we kind of forget about dads and we forget about other partners.
Mhm.
And so I think that was something that I thought was beautiful that, you know, um, we talk about everyone grieves differently. And I think definitely, um, not to over genderize things, but I think men and women grieve differently, and it's different grief when you're carrying and you're not. And so I really love that this is, while it was geared for a bereaved mom, it's not saying it has to just be for a bereaved mom. So I think that, that's one thing that I really liked.
Mhm.
Yeah, I think my husband could derive a lot from this as well,
Mhm.
of all that prep and thinking about those things, not knowing until you're kind of in
Mhm.
it, how triggering and how tough something can be.
Mhm.
And, I think those are really important things. I feel like I had another question with that, and now I can't think of. Oh, one thing I really did love, and I think that this is something I've really tried to drive home is, you know, it's really easy, and I say easy in quotes, to show up for, memorial or in the immediacy, right? And then there's like this point when people start going back to their normal lives, and you're still stuck in the grief
Yeah.
and trying to figure out how that looks. And so, I think that that's something that you talk about a lot, that it feels like sort of everyone else moves on and you're doing this. And it kind of feels like, I mean, we live in a world that wants you to move on, right? And like,
Mhm.
so when is this over with? And
Mhm.
you and I both know, and any other person who has experienced this losses, it doesn't go away, right? It
Right.
gets better at times and then it gets worse and all of that.
Mhm.
So I think one of the things I liked is that you talk about that, but then you also take a positive spin on, but think about all the people who do reach
Mhm.
out, right? And I think that's so true, right? And I think so. I'm going to give you a topic for your next book, but I think it's the first after, but then I think it's the following ones, right? I think I was just Mother's Day wasn't all that long ago, and I was thinking like that first Mother's Day after
It's
Colette died,
tough.
I was inundated with, you know, reminders and just checking in and all that. And it's lessened every year since.
Mhm.
And now we have a 4-year-old. And so I do get it, but it's very much geared towards being Elliot's mom and not Colette's mom. Which, don't get me wrong, like I'm thrilled to celebrate Elliot as well.
Mhm.
But it's harder, right? And those are hard days. And so I think also, you want to write the second after
Mhm.
the 50th after whatever. Um, I'm game, and you can come back and we'll talk about that too. But I think that that's really important. And I like the idea of putting a little bit of positivity on the fact that there are people who continue to show up over and over again. And reminding yourself of that, even though some people won't show up,
Mm-hmm.
and
Mm-hmm.
you just have to move on and
Mm-hmm.
kind of live with that. So
Mm-hmm.
that's something I really love. Um, so what advice do you hope, like, would you give a parent who is going through this journey? I'm sure you get asked this a lot, and I know I do, but I'm always curious what people sort of their initial things that they would say.
Um, oh boy. Someone going through this journey, I would say find a way to pull your grief out and put it into something. However that is. Think about whatever your career is, whatever your special talent is, whatever you love doing. Maybe find a way to have a project where you can pour your grief into that project. For me, it's graphic design. And so writing this book was it for me. For my husband, he's a writer. He loves writing stories. And so he is writing a book about Saoirse going on some magical adventure with, in a different land. And she gets separated from her parents. And the whole book, she's trying to get back to her parents. And she's actually going through the stages of grief in the story to overcome to the next milestone to get closer to her parents. And he said he feels like he gets to be a parent to Saoirse when he's in this story. And so I'm sure there are other ways other than being creative that you can honor that. And I've seen some special friends who do keep it bottled up inside, and it affects you physically. And my encouragement would be to kind of open the 2 liter of Coke a little bit, let a little bit of fizz out every once in a while
Yeah,
so that it doesn't overwhelm
right.
you.
No,
Mm-hmm.
I think that's great. I know that I will say, starting this organization, that was a lot of my, I say it was like my mom energy of not having a baby in my arms to do
Mm-hmm.
that, not having all the feedings
Yeah.
and the,
Yeah.
lack of sleep and everything. It was taking all of that sort of like energy and putting it into this.
Mm-hmm.
And just like your husband said, like I always say that running this is the way I'm parenting Colette. And I think that that's really important. That's really true. Um, and my good friend Tamika, who's on, just said I love that, and she has
Oh.
taken um, her son's Jace, and she has really just become an advocate for maternal health, maternal mortality, and just really looking at it. And I think that's a beautiful way of how she is honoring her loss, her
Oh.
Jace, um, who is best friend. We've decided is best friends with Colette. They had a very similar timeline, so
Oh.
we've decided that they're best friends in heaven, whatever you want to
That's
call it. I
sweet.
think it's yeah.
Mm-hmm.
So what do you hope uh, that this book does? I mean, what do you hope, kind of like broad scale? Uh, what do you hope that it does?
I mean, my dream is to get the book in bereavement programs all over the world so that in that maternity ward, when they're hand this book, it's like, here's a little slice of hope.
Mhm.
Um, and that really is my dream. And I hope that any grieving mother who reads it, even if she doesn't actually do the little exercises, I purposely designed it so it would look beautiful, even if you leave it empty.
Right.
Because sometimes, even if you just fill it out in your
Mhm.
mind, like that would be enough. And I really wanted something that would be like a keepsake as well, where it's very minimally triggering, but it's somewhere to record your progress so that on those days, like you said, like grief comes in waves and you think, wow, why am I so, am I even making any progress? And then
Right.
you can look back on this book and it can encourage you to see how far you've gone. And that's really my hope, is that it just continues to um, relive, kind of re-give life to the mother to keep up hope
Right.
and keep going,
Yeah.
and ultimately allow themselves to feel joy again, because it is capable, like we are capable
Right.
of it, but it's allowing yourself is the hardest thing to overcome.
Right. Yeah. No, absolutely. Allowing yourself, and then recognizing that those bad days are not one of one of the problems I had was like one of my first bad days. I thought I've gone completely backwards and I'm back to like the beginning. And the truth is it's not, right? It's like two steps forward, one step back, one
Yeah.
step forward, two steps back, like all that kind of thing. But I think, your analogy of waves is really important. I think this is a great way to sort of honor it. And I love the keepsake part of it, especially for early losses. You may not have any of that concrete stuff that you can use it. And so I like the idea that this is a really nice keepsake that people can use and really appreciate and love.
And the funny thing is, I've even used it now. It's 9 years out, and I've been filling it out with the process of launching the book
Hmm.
because, like, even just like the support page, every time someone likes a post or reshares something about my book, I put a dot on that page uh, because kind of advertising this book is a whole nother thing.
Right,
So,
right. No, for
uh,
sure, definitely. Yeah.
mm,
Yeah, no, and I love that idea. And I mean, I was looking through it, I mean, like, I wish I had had this 6 years ago, but also like there are times now where I think it would be really helpful to go through it and to do that. And I love the dot experience. I'm going to totally be doing that
mm.
because I think that's great. So anything else that you would like to share with us about the book, about grief, about anything?
Um, let's see. I think I'm trying to look at my notes to see if there's anything. No, I think that's the gist of it. Just um, even if you have a friend who's currently grieving and you don't know how to support them, I feel like gifting them a copy of this book would help. And like I said, like I feel like if you do it in tandem with a mental health professional, then that would be the ideal scenario to help you kind of reprocess some of that
Right.
grief. But I wrote it in a way that you could do it on your own as well. So yeah, I just encourage anyone. It's on Amazon, and I have my website, thefirstafter.com, and just kind of check it out. And I love getting feedback. So if there's something that's not covered in there, please message me, and I'd love to do a second edition.
Right. Yeah, definitely. And she has an idea for a second book already from me. So, whatever that is. So it's first after. And you took my last question away, which is going to be where do you find it? So Amazon. And then firstafter.com.
Yes,
Okay.
thefirstafter.com.
Okay. Perfect. Well, thank you, Grace, so much for writing this book and for joining us here today. We will be putting this up and we will definitely share this book and recommend this book to all of our followers who are,
Thank you.
dealing with this or know somebody who is. So
Thanks so much for taking the time to speak with me. And I feel like any bereaved mother that I speak to, we have this instant kind of
absolutely. For
bond.
sure. For sure. For sure.
they,
Yes.
they call it like the club no one wants to
Right.
join.
Yeah. Yes. And yes, it is really not a club we want to join, but I'm so glad to have so many amazing fellow members and who I think are just so helpful and really, honoring our babies who aren't here. And, well, thank you so much. And I really appreciate it. And again, I would say, um, I'm Grace, I want to have your husband on, but
Sure.
any other authors, whether you wrote a book or you know somebody who did, or you just read a book and you're like, this is fabulous and let's do this, please reach out and let me know because I would love to have them on. So thanks so much. Have a great rest of the day. And thanks again,
Thank
Grace.
you.
Bye-bye.
Bye.